Hello everyone. This is chapter 30 of my contemporary romance novel, Under A Namibian Sky. In this chapter, we join Naomi as she says goodbye to Desert Lodge. But it's not forever. She had agreed with Luca that they'd spend a few months in Italy and a few months at Desert Lodge. But would it work? And a little warning, there's some heat in this chapter. The light blue sky still carried tiny pinpricks of stars, but they were rapidly fading as the pinks and oranges of the sunrise brushed across them, and the light increased with the birth of a new day. Luca and Naomi were driving into the desert. He had his eye glued to his camera. She basked in the extraordinary freedom of the early morning breeze against her skin, the desert smells, and the sight of the light fog evaporating before the advancing sun. When they reached the place they'd been aiming for, Luca got out of the truck and walked around it to help Naomi down. Carrying a picnic blanket and basket from the back of the vehicle, he quickly found the perfect spot. He spread the blanket out on the sand, set down their basket, and poured them each a rich cup of coffee. Naomi stared at the dunes that disappeared into the distance. I'm going to miss this so much. We can come back here any time, Mrs. Armati. Don't you want to go on a short honeymoon with me and afterward to see your home in Italy? Naomi looked at her husband. He'll always stay beyond handsome. Of course I do. I can't wait. I'll go anywhere with you, Mr. Armati. You know that, right? Luca nodded. And I'll go anywhere with you, amore mio. Naomi returned her gaze toward the dunes. So, do you really think our plan will work? 6 months there and 6 months here. It sounds like quite a long time to me. Luca sat down and stretched his long legs in front of him, crossing them at his ankles and leaning back against the dune behind him. It'll fly by, you'll see. But if it doesn't work for you and you get too homesick, we can always do 3 months there, 3 months here, and back and forth. Nothing is cast in stone, Mrs. Armati. I'll be happy to be wherever you are. Naomi giggled. You're too funny. You say that now, but I've seen how focused you are on work. Luca wiggled his eyebrows at her and patted the area beside him for her to join him. I'm more focused on you. So, what's your house like, Mr. Armati? You mean our house? I hope you'll like it. It's big and full of marble, but if you hate it, we can move. It's not too far from my dad's house, and Santina lives about 15 minutes away. Although now they're going to get married, they'll probably sell one of their houses. Naomi sat down beside Luca and was silent for a moment. Can I ask you something? Sure, anything. You know that. I know, but I don't want to cause you any more pain than you've already been dealing with. Luca put his arm around her shoulders and pulled her closer to him. You won't, amore mio. You can never cause me pain. When I think of you, I think only of pleasure, in every sense of the word. Naomi blushed, but couldn't contain the smile his words brought to her lips. It's about what Santina said, you know, when she told us about what had happened with Cecilia. Naomi waited to feel Luca tense against her, but when he didn't, she continued. What I'm puzzled about is why she stayed with you and Enzo for 8 years before leaving. It means she must have forgiven him and Santina, and she must have loved you. Luca sighed. I don't think we'll ever know for sure. I want to believe she loved us. She was challenging to live with at times, and indeed she had huge mood swings. I remember once She locked me in a wardrobe for several hours for some minor indiscretion. I think she forgot I was in there. My dad let me out when he got home. Even if we could ask her, I don't think she'd be able to tell us why she stayed and then why she left. I feel sorry for her. I hope she's found some peace and joy in her life by now. It's so sad, isn't it? Such a waste of life, of love. My father, Cecilia, Santina, who knew? Naomi leaned her head on Luca's shoulder. Together they watched as the sun licked away the last cool morning shadows from the dunes. Luca turned to kiss Naomi. At first, a tender kiss as an expression of his love for her. But as his passion mounted, his kisses deepened until their hearts and their breathing was racing, and they were tearing at each other's clothes to satisfy their craving for each other. As soon as they were naked, Luca pulled Naomi on top of his aching arousal, and holding on to her hips, took part in their mutual pleasure until she moaned again and again. When he was sure she was satisfied, he turned her around and entered her. The sight of his penetration, the scent of her, and the sounds of her moistness sent him over the edge, and together they cried their release. Their voices joined with those who'd left their echo in this barren place, where the dance of life had continued for millennia. By the time they'd finished their breakfast, although still early, the sun's rays were hot on their bodies. Luca draped an arm over Naomi's stomach. "I guess we'd better get back, Mrs. Armati." She nodded and got up to get dressed, but Luca had other ideas in mind. He found her clothes and dressed her, but not in the order she typically got dressed. They giggled and laughed, and when she was fully clothed again, she did the same for him. The journey back to Desert Lodge was bittersweet. The last, Naomi knew, before new experiences in another land would change her forever. But the desert would always live in her heart. As they drove up to the lodge, a massive truck with 7 brand new dune buggies came into view. Everyone who worked at the lodge, it seemed, and a few neighbours, were admiring the small vehicles. Naomi looked at Luca, amazement clear in her voice. "That was quick." "Not really. I'd given the go-ahead the moment we got back from being stranded in the storm. The prototype tested perfectly, and the components for the buggies were already at the factory. It was just a matter of assembly." Kerry walked toward them, waving, her face beaming with excitement. "Aren't they gorgeous? Thank you so much, Luca. Your timing couldn't have been more perfect. Now, when our new guests arrive next week, the buggies will be ready for hire." Luca made a funny, smug face, his voice impression that of a sleazy car salesman. "That was the plan all along." Naomi and Kerry laughed at his silliness as he helped Naomi from the truck. Together, the 3 friends walked to inspect the buggies up close, running appreciative hands over the sleek metal. After much adoration, they left the rest of the admirers there and walked around the corner to the Lapa. Now that no guests were staying at the lodge, and Kerry's team had nearly completed the intensive cleaning of the rooms, a calm serenity had settled over the place. Naomi sighed as she sat down in a chair facing the swimming pool. It felt good to have the place to themselves for this short while. Kerry ordered coffee, using her walkie-talkie, before turning to Luca and Naomi. "So, what are your plans? I guess you're still on your honeymoon." Luca took Naomi's hand and kissed her fingers, all the while looking into her eyes as he answered Kerry's question. "Your guess is correct, Kerry. And I intend to take my bride to a place that's even more romantic than this, if that were possible." Kerry glanced at Naomi, but her friend tried to stay unfazed. "Yes, Luca has promised to take me to Venice." Kerry practically squealed her delight for her friend. "That's so awesome! It's on my bucket list." Luca smiled at her. Well, when you and Johan finally tie the knot, he can take you there. See? You can stay at our palazzo. Kerry's eyes glittered at the prospect. Oh, thank you so much, Luca. I'll tell Johan. He'll be so excited. Meanwhile, I'll just have to live vicariously through the two of you. Naomi laughed at Kerry's silliness. Don't worry, I'll Skype you from there. Kerry grinned at the prospect. When are you leaving? Luca glanced at Naomi to make sure he wasn't giving away any secrets, but she smiled her consent. Tonight. Oh my God, so soon! Well, then you must excuse Naomi and me, Luca. I still have several business details to go over with her. Luca nodded and kissed Naomi's hand again, just as the waitress arrived with the coffee. Kerry got up and poured Luca a cup, taking the rest of the tray with her. I hope that's okay with you, Naomi-han. Sorry to drag you away during your honeymoon. Sure, it has to be done. No biggie. Naomi got up, kissed Luca, and followed Kerry to her office, glancing behind her and blowing him kisses which he caught and returned until she disappeared around the corner. Luca stretched his legs out in front of him and intertwined his fingers behind his head as he leaned back in the chair. He tried to remember what it felt like when he'd first arrived at Desert Lodge. Even though it was only a short while ago, he was still astonished at how recent it was. He couldn't remember what his life was like before Naomi and Desert Lodge. Okay, he felt they had to rush into marriage because of Auntie Elsa's unexpected illness and death, but he knew in his heart they'd done the right thing. He was glad everything had happened the way it did. Well, not about Auntie Elsa's death, obviously, but now, somehow, his life made sense. He was grateful Santina had had the courage to tell him about his birth and his mother. How wonderful that his father and Santina were both willing to give up their miserable, isolated existences and give each other a chance. It filled his heart with happiness. In fact, it was difficult to verbalize how happy he was. It felt like life, before it all, before Naomi, was just existence. Now he was alive. He was looking forward to the future with her. He was looking forward to experiencing more of this new feeling that lived inside his body. It was a feeling of belonging. Everything was right in his world. He felt content. When Naomi excused herself after lunch to visit Auntie Elsa's grave for the last time before they left, Luca returned to their suite. He never usually took a siesta in the afternoon, but he wanted to be fresh for the long flight back to Italy this evening. He felt almost guilty about it, until he remembered they'd driven into the desert before sunrise. Meanwhile, Naomi sat down beside Auntie Elsa's grave. She couldn't help being in awe of how much her life had changed in such a short space of time. Leaving for Italy, even though not forever, felt like leaving Auntie Elsa too. Even if she was still alive, Naomi would have felt like this, sad and happy and excited all at once. Naomi's eyes welled up. She'd miss Auntie Elsa so much. She sighed. There was a question she would have loved to ask Auntie Elsa, besides wanting to know if she'd met Uncle Wouter again. Naomi would have asked about change. Why change was something all humans craved, yet, when it happened, it brought great fear, often to the point of self-sabotage. Naomi thought it a mystery. She was sure a conversation about change would have been a grand one with her wise, beloved adoptive mother. As she thought about it, and imagined what Auntie Elsa might have said, Naomi decided there and then not to fear change, but to embrace it. It was part of human being, part of life. Everything was in a constant flux of change. Of course it was. When the understanding finally came, it was not merely a mental grasp, but also an emotional awareness that brought a sense of peace. Despite the many changes in her life previously, this time the changes seemed massive. Her new life not only included a new husband, a new family, but a new country and a new business. It could easily have felt overwhelming. But it didn't. It felt exciting. She felt alive. She felt happy, even as her heart still mourned Auntie Elsa's death. In the next and the last chapter, we visit Venice with Luca and Naomi as they spend a week there on their honeymoon before travelling to Modena and the home Luca hopes Naomi would come to love. But can she fit into his life? There's the question. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you for listening. Thank you for liking and sharing my videos. And most of all, thank you so much for subscribing to my channel. If you haven't done so yet, I'd be honoured if you did so now. And also, if you click on the bell icon, you will find out when I upload the next video. Until next time.